In the early months of the current war in Sudan, if you looked at the two warring parties, the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces, their weaponry, manpower and the control of the country's institutions, the SAF would appear to be the stronger force. The RSF only had about 100,000 men compared to the Sudanese army's estimated 200,000. The SAF is technically the official army of Sudan, and under the leadership of Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, they were in control of the capital Khartoum and several key cities and military bases. The RSF paramilitary group has its origins in an armed militia group called the Janjaweed, who have a history of committing atrocities and genocidal acts in Sudan. The RSF grew stronger as they crushed dissent across Sudan and fought for UAE-backed forces in Yemen and Libya. But they wouldn't be able to sustain themselves without the weapons supply chains of their key backers and taking weapons from the Sudanese army. The support and backing comes primarily from one place, the United Arab Emirates. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the head of the RSF, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, also known as Hemeti, are allies turned enemies who helped overthrow the former president Omar al-Bashir in 2019. They're now in a power struggle over control over Sudan that has entered its third year and devastated the entire country that they're fighting over. So let's explore how the supply of weapons fueled this current conflict and dragged the UAE into potentially being complicit in genocide. Sudan has been engulfed in a brutal civil war since the 15th of April 2023, a power struggle between the two warring parties with heavy foreign involvement. The war has so far displaced more than 12 million people and killed tens of thousands. The true numbers are hard to pinpoint. The UN calls it the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
The scale and speed of Sudan's descent into death and destruction is unprecedented.
The RSF paramilitary group have been accused of widespread sexual assault, looting, torture and the mass executions of civilians, whilst the SAF have also been criticised for indiscriminate bombing campaigns in various cities. The vast majority of Sudanese people oppose the RSF for what it stands for, its foreign backing and its conduct against Sudanese people.
And another reason why people are supporting SAF is for that the majority of violations and heinous crimes committed in this war has been committed by the RSF and its followers, whether it is committing gender-based violence, sexual violence in war, gang rapes, holding women in servitude, selling them as sex slaves, or, the raping of men and boys, which is criminally underreported. It's just, the list is endless when it comes to the crimes that have been committed by the RSF, but this does not mean that SAF is a completely innocent bystander.
The UAE is the RSF's largest backer, with strong evidence indicating that it continued to financially support and supply the paramilitary group with weapons throughout the war, despite the well-documented atrocities the RSF commits.
The reason behind this is that the UAE, and that's their kind of policy, is that when they want influence and strategic depth in a particular country, they select one party that they think they can support and that they can control in a way that no one else can control this entity. And when they realized that support for the government Khartoum would be shared with other actors like Egypt and Sudan and Saudi Arabia, the Emiratis were looking at the RSF as an actor that has no other patron, that is very, very closely tied to the UAE. And the reason behind that is that Hemeti himself, who's head of the RSF, has a long history of doing his own personal finances through the UAE. He has, and his brother and his family, they have front companies in the UAE. They've used the UAE as a hub for smuggling, for laundering money, for laundering gold in particular.
Middle East Eye has previously reported on the covert supply routes used to arm the RSF, tracing the flow of weapons from the UAE through intermediaries in Libya, Chad and the Central African Republic. Multiple flights take place from the UAE bases in Chad, where arms smuggling to Sudanese paramilitaries is known to take place. The videos of weapons seized from the RSF revealing manufacturing locations of weapons being the UAE.
It is a proxy war, if you'd like to call it that. And if Western countries are to get involved, what for? What would they stand to gain? And it will definitely only exacerbate the situation already, and it would result in this war overspilling into other nations.
I think establishing Dubai as the most important commodity hub for gold and also for diamonds, especially for the global South and Africa, is not about financial returns. It's not about making money. It's about creating first interdependence between Abu Dhabi and the continent of Africa, and then morphing this sort of interdependence into some sort of codependence where commodity traders in this part of the world all have to go through the UAE, and the UAE can basically open and close the taps to give access to certain people and not to others. That is very, very important influence.
With the UAE's ties to the RSF very clear, Sudan has brought a case to the International Court of Justice, accusing the UAE of enabling and aiding genocide against Sudanese people.
The actual legal sort of pressure on the UAE that will make a difference. The hope here is that over time, the court or the public pressure that arises from it, because now you have obviously politicians talking about it, you have international organizations talking about it, you have the media talking about it, civil society talking about it, and all the atrocities that have been committed by the RSF are somewhat linked to the support that they're receiving from the UAE. And that in itself, that public pressure, I think is very, very important, because the hope here is that the UAE will kind of fear that pressure and change their way. I think that hope is very naive. I don't think the UAE will back down from their support of the RSF. I think moving forward, I think that the UAE will probably push back only, and will probably only change their way if pressure came from Washington. And I think with the Trump administration in place now, I don't see how the United States will really care about what's going on in Sudan. And without public pressure from Washington, it's most likely that the UAE will continue using these different channels that they have curated.
So what are the details of this case being brought forward by Sudan against the UAE, and how realistic is it for the case to be taken forward? On the 6th of March, Sudan filed a case against the UAE at the ICJ, accusing it of violating the 1948 Genocide Convention. At the heart of the accusations is Darfur, specifically the RSF's ethnic cleansing campaign against the Masalit people in West Darfur, which Sudan argued was enabled by the UAE's military support. Sudan's acting Justice Minister Muawiyah Osman outlined details of the atrocities committed to the court.
And their affiliated militia has been continue to be the primary driving force behind genocide now taking place.
He added that the ongoing genocide would not be possible without the complicity of the UAE, including shipments of arms to the RSF. In the case, Sudan requested that the court issue provisional measures to prevent genocide against the Masalit group, and order the UAE to take measures to prevent genocidal acts taking place.
That clause that the UAE has, when they signed that they cannot be tried for genocide, is a major stumbling block. And at the same time, Sudan itself, the Sudan Armed Forces, does not have a clean history when it comes to violations. However, what's interesting to me was the terminology used, is that the UAE is complicit in the act of genocide through its support and supply of arms and arms to the RSF.
But the UAE not only denies all these allegations, but called Sudan's case a cynical attempt to deflect attention. It says the proceedings should be dismissed immediately. Last year, this report by the Raoul Wallenberg Center highlighted the clear and convincing evidence that the RSF and allied militias have committed genocide, not only against the Masalit, but also the Fur, Zarwa, and ethnic groups in Sudan. It named the UAE as one of the states complicit in that genocide. Over the past 2 years, the country has been devastated as the warring parties fight for control over key cities and districts. The Sudanese population has faced the full brunt of this.
حالتنا يعني صعبة شديدة، بننام في الوطا والأكل صعبة، يعني مو عيب لكن مشاكلها كثير، والعيال بيكونوا مريضين وما في يعني مستشفى صحي عشان الزول يمشي عليه، يعني الحالة صعبة شديد.
But there have been occasional moments of breakthrough amid the turmoil. Recently, the Sudanese army recaptured the capital Khartoum from the RSF paramilitary, and celebrations filled the streets as the army declared Khartoum was free from the RSF, a major gain for the SAF after the RSF controlled Khartoum for 2 years. The RSF have now reportedly declared a parallel government challenging the military leadership led by Burhan and the SAF, Hameti, the head of the RSF, said they are not building a parallel state, but a realistic future for Sudan. The announcement coincided with a conference in London, where diplomats were meant to discuss a peaceful resolution to the fighting. Officials called the conference a diplomatic flop, after it ended in arguments between Arab states and no concluding statement on an actionable path forward. There was not a single reference to civilian protection in the official statement, and those invited to the conference didn't include Sudanese government representatives. Instead, the British government extended invitations to countries accused of supporting the RSF, including the UAE.
I believe that there has been very poor political will to find a solution or to find an end to this war. If anything, the vast majority of mediation talks or meetings have been half-hearted, so to speak.
Earlier this year, even the US backed the accusations that the RSF is committing genocide and supported sanctioning Hameti.
They're trying to get out of this by saying that the court has no jurisdiction in investigating the UAE's role in abetting genocide in Sudan.
I would love to see someone championing the Sudanese people and fighting for them to get accountability, but it's a wish that I don't think will be happening anytime soon.
But with no clear end to the war in sight, for many Sudanese people, this legal move is not only about accountability, it's about survival and sending a message that genocide, even when cloaked in international alliances, must not go unanswered.